Hello, welcome to Hat Trick. I'm Jordan Dowler Coltman, joined by Elliott Tanti and Braden Dowler Coltman. And I got to check before we get going here. Do I sound more like I'm ready to do a Chevy commercial or a Ford commercial with this voice from my lingering cold? Because personally, I think I sound a little bit like I could do the Chevy Silverado, best in class.
Legend of the Chevy Farm.
There you go. There's an old Edmonton called up.
I think it'd be more like, it's so dramatic, your voice change, that I think it's more like one of those car company that's like not traditionally a truck company. So they like really play it up because they're trying to break into the market. You're like a Toyota Tacoma salesman.
A Toyota Tacoma, best in class.
Yeah,
you still got that southern twang though that works. We should cut a bunch of promos right now. We should do a Roma Pizza and Donair. Busy bee vegan. All right, here's the deal. We have a few things to get to today. We'll try to keep it short and snappy, but you know how it goes. We had great feedback on last week's episode. We had some great debate and some great fun. This week, I don't know where this is going to go, but we know where we're going to start. So let's get to it. Here we go with topic one. Okay, topic one, big weekend of football. Big weekend in general. There's just lots going on. I moved. I know you guys are both probably busy. There's lots of things going on. Hockey's starting to pick back up. The Oilers are finally getting to play some games. Canadian teams are starting to get some games. And then those poor Canucks are now getting all the COVID tests positive when all the other Canadian teams are over the hill. So if you're a Canucks fan, who knows what the next week and a half may hold. But if you're an Oilers fan, you know, maybe they're able to turn the corner. We'll see. We'll get to the Oilers in a minute. But let's start with the NFL, because what a huge divisional weekend. We all did some predictions last week, and I know, you know, I'm not going to waste any more time with this. Boy, oh boy, did Tanti polling, #Tanti polling, take a beating. Let me turn it over to Elliott, who has our predictions from last week, but it didn't go well for you, buddy, did it?
No, I wouldn't be buying stock in Tanti polling right now if you had the option to. We might have to be rethinking our football projections, because I went 1-3 last week. And what's embarrassing about that is just I was so overly confident and arrogant last week.
Oh yeah, go back and listen. Every time Braden and I made a pick, he was trash talking.
I was just like, no, garbage. You guys are wrong.
I don't think you've been watching the games.
I was, I was really bad. Congratulations to you, Jordan. You went 3-1 this weekend.
Yeah,
you had
I was almost there with that Bills game. That was a close one.
The Bills, and that would have made me 0-4, and so I went to overtime and I was sweating. I was like, "Oh man, I'm probably not going to. I'm probably going to hear about this anyway." But yeah, so Brandon, you didn't.
Just before you give us who the picks were, let me just give you a quick rundown here. So we'll go in the order the games are played. So on Saturday we had the Bengals Titans, and the Bengals squeaked that one out with a field goal, 19-16. So Joe Burrow and the Bengals get to keep going. The 49ers and the Packers played in very snowy Lambeau Field there in Green Bay, what may have been Rodgers' last game with the Green Bay Packers, because another field goal won it for the 49ers in a tight one. That was 13-10. And I say tight only moreover because it was a snowy game where there just wasn't a lot of scoring. But again, it came down to the last second field goal. And then Tom Brady, in what could be very possibly his last game, losing today to the Rams on a last second field goal. Every one of these games gave thrills right through to the very end. And the Buccaneers, in a classic Tom Brady drive right at the end, after it looked like the Rams had a little bit of a stranglehold, the Bucs found a way to get back up on their feet, charge down the field, and they forced the Rams to kick a game-winning touchdown field goal, and they did. And then of course the Bills and the Chiefs, what a classic that was. And just another slobberknocker of two amazing young quarterbacks. We talked about it at length last week, but Mahomes and Josh Allen going back and forth, and it looked like the Bills had finally climbed the mountain when they had 18 seconds left on the clock after they took the lead with a touchdown. But 18 seconds was all that Mahomes needed to get down the field. They tied it with a field goal, and then they never gave the Bills the ball back. They won it in overtime, 42-36. So there's your rundown. There's your Sports Center update. Elliott, how did we do? Who was right? I mean, we know you were wrong on most of them, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah, interestingly, all different records. You were 3-1. The only one that you picked wrong was, like you said, the Bills, and it was close. Braden, well done, 2-2. You had the Niners and the Bengals.
3-1.
Almost 3-1. And I went 1-3, almost 0-4, because the only one that I picked right was the Chiefs. What a week, hey? For me, it's so interesting, and this is kind of the thing about NFL football is that, and why the playoffs are so much fun. Every favorite won last week, and almost every home team favorite almost lost this week, except for the Chiefs, who were able to pull it out at home. But the Bucks, Packers, Titans all lost at home and were heavy favorites going into each of those games. So it's just a crapshoot. But a great week of football. I watched every game. Or a part of every game. The only game I missed majority missed was the Bengals Titans game. But otherwise, just really a great week.
How could you miss Cincinnati Bengals? How could you miss Joe Burrow and the Jamar Chase? Well, unfortunately, I don't think they're going to make it past the next round. So, Jordan, I've never heard anyone ever use the term Slobberknocker. And for those who don't understand what that means, I had to look it up. And it refers to a match or contest that is particularly hard fought or physically aggressive. You nailed it with that definition, but I've never heard of something called a Slobberknocker. And I really hope never to hear that word again. A lot of fun. The football. The Chiefs and the Bills game was, you said, a classic. It will forever be one of them. They said 25 points in the last 2 minutes of the football game. It
was crazy.
And then overtime. It's awesome. It's really
not a great last little bit there of the fourth quarter if you're a fan of defense, because both Josh Allen and Mahomes just picked the opponents apart. And it came down to a coin toss, because literally I think the result may have been the exact same the other way had Josh Allen and the Bills won the coin toss, because he probably would have sliced through and got a touchdown too. They were both so sharp offensively, both of those teams. And unfortunately for the Bills, I feel for the Bills. You got to remember, this is a franchise, never won a Super Bowl. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost all 4 in the Jim Kelly era. That has got to be one of the most astounding and yet heartbreaking stories in the history of sport. And for the next 2 decades, they were the lowly Bills. They just couldn't put a winning team together. They got stuck in a division with Tom Brady and the greatest team on turf, with the way that Bill Belichick just destroyed them year after year after year. There was never a chance. And now, they've got this superstar quarterback and an opportunity with a really good team to get there. And it I don't know, it felt like, and this is why I picked them, I really felt like this was going to be the year that they figured out Kansas City.
Seconds left.
But there's a reason Kansas City's been to 4 straight conference championships. They are the best team right now. You have to go through them to get to the Super Bowl. And now it's up to the Bengals to see if they can slay the Giants. And I don't know. It'll be a tough one. Before we get to the next week's matchup, though, fully, Elliott, any final thoughts on this weekend?
Yeah, just on that Bills and Chiefs game, doesn't the outcome of that game just make you so frustrated about the way in which the NFL deals with overtime? Wouldn't you just want to see Josh Allen come back and go the other way?
Like college football. Yeah,
there are very few like college football, or even there's very few things.
The CFL too.
The CFL is better than the NFL on, but one of them is how they decide close games. Here's what you do: you give each team the ball once. If you get a touchdown, you have to go for 2. If you match the other team's score, then you go and do it. You get another 2 possessions. And a safety ends it. That is, or a deep possession ends it. That is how this should be played. The Bills should have had at least one. Should have touched the ball in overtime.
What about in hockey overtime? It's sudden death. Whoever scores next wins, right?
Yeah, but presumably both teams have possession, and it's a very different game. There's back and forth, and very rarely, sometimes you see a team win the faceoff and go down and score. But really, generally, there's chances being traded back and forth. And actually the 3-on-3 has really improved the overtime. But I think in a possession-based game like the NFL, I think you have to give both teams the ball. And I think there was a Super Bowl that was ended. I think it was Falcons Patriots.
What about 2-on-2 NFL overtime? Just the quarterbacks and receiver or tight end.
Here's one.
Right there would be a Slobberknocker.
Yeah, here's a different take on that, Elliott. I don't know if you. I'm not enough of an NFL fan to really know if this is something that bothers most people. But you got to ask yourself, was there not more the Bills could have or should have done after scoring the touchdown to go ahead. The way they kicked off, it ended up as a touchback, giving them field position at the 25.
Yeah.
Like, do you not have kickers who are good enough in this league to do, I don't know, a little bit more of like a coffin corner or try to pin these guys? Or like, I don't know if a squib kick's the right choice. You don't want to give Mahomes possession any further up, but like, you got to try a little bit harder to down that ball, deeper in there. Now, maybe they get the run back. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It just feels like there may have been, it also felt like it felt to me like the minute the Chiefs got the ball back, they were going to tie the game. Like, it just felt inevitable because of how good Mahomes is. And it felt that, I said this to Larice, who was watching with me. We only watched kind of the last 5 minutes of every one of these games, to be completely honest. We've been moving all weekend, but I was keeping track of the score on my phone, and every time I was like, holy smoke, this game's going to come back down. Like this game is also coming down to the last couple plays. But the Chiefs, once they had the ball, it felt like the Bills showed just a little bit of the inexperience, that they had not yet been in this situation, or didn't feel like they were ready for this stage. And it felt like it was almost inevitable that they were just going to give up that, and then it felt the same way in overtime. It's just the pressure got to them. It felt like, maybe I'm wrong, but
I think your point on the kick is, maybe you find some way, if you can, you probably direct your kicker to, in the ideal situation, kick it between the end zone and the 5-yard line and give them the longest run back. But there's lots of situations where if you're giving them a run back, they're actually ending up with ball position better than the 25. So the 25 is fine. Like, that, with 13 seconds left, that's a lot to do. The problem was they didn't want to give up the big play. So they dropped their safeties and they didn't want to do everything over the top. And what Mahomes is able to do, because he's got one of if not the best tight end in the league, just put the ball in Kelsey's hand, and Kelsey is like amazing. And he got underneath he got in between the coverage and the deep coverage, and they were able to make a pass, and then he was able to run up to get into field goal range. I think they did the right thing. Like, that's what you should be able to do. But what you expect out of your secondary is to make a tackle downfield, and they had 2 plays to do that, and on both plays, they gave up too many yards after the catch. That's the problem.
Speaking of Kelsey, like, we're in like the golden age of tight ends. I mean, it starts with Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, but that's a whole different situation. But like, on the field, an amazing tight end. And you've got these, right now you've got Travis Kelce and George Kittle, both still in the playoffs, amazing tight ends. Oh, yeah. The Raiders have the Darnell Waller, I think it is.
Or Waller.
And the Falcons just drafted Pitts. And like, it just feels really good, like the NFL is evolving into more and more of, like, to be an elite team, you must have an elite tight end. I don't know if that was always the case or not, but it feels like we've got more of them as stars than we do even wide receivers right now. Like, this is a special time for tight ends.
Well, that's emerged because of the increased passing in the league, right? And having that underneath route, or that bigger body that is difficult to track, because they may be blocking in some schemes and catching the ball in others. And just the physicality of that position. Like, those guys are 6'7", and some of them are the fastest on the field. Like, those guys are the physicality required to do that job is immense. And it's sort of like, after the quarterback, your tight end can be the most important piece of your offense if you're playing it right. And that's really emerged in this new sort of like pass first NFL generation.
Tight ends and slobberknockers.
I'm surprised you've never heard this term.
Never in my life.
It's not.
Elliott, you've heard of slobberknocker?
Oh yeah. What? Because yeah, but like, it's because I have friends like Jordan that are like 31 going on 87 and have terms like that.
Okay. All right. Well, you learned something new.
Let's just quickly touch on 2 of the other games. Anybody notice that on the winning field goal for the San Francisco 49ers, the Green Bay Packers didn't have the correct number of men on the field?
No.
They were a man short.
That's crazy.
No, they were a man short. Like, you're trying to block a game-winning field goal attempt. You got to have the right number of men on the field. Am I wrong? That feels like an unforced error. Any thoughts on Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay's game there, Elliott? Did that? It surprised you. You thought they were going to win, but any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, just to that point on the field goal. Most teams will have like a standard field goal group and then like a block group and so they probably just got screwed up in who was supposed to be out on the field.
Bit of a bad time to get screwed up.
Oh yeah, your last play of your season. Yeah, absolutely. I think your note about last game for the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, I think is right. I think Aaron Rodgers has seen what Tom Brady's done at the Bucs, and he's going to go find some team that plays in warm weather where he's going to get, a massive contract and be the star and close out his career and try and prove that he can do it in another place. Because I think Green Bay's got serious personnel issues. I mean, that's, like I said, was when I was talking about Aaron Rodgers being MVP, it's sort of a mess around him. And it has been for the last little bit, at least. And I think he wants a team like the Bucs that are built to win and that have lots of players, and gives him a chance to win another Super Bowl before the end of his career. So that was a good point.
So if you look at the Vegas odds, which of course came out the second after they went through, they have the Packers are still quite high. They're tied for first in the odds category with the Broncos, and then the Steelers, who obviously both need a quarterback now. So
the Steelers are going to get a really good quarterback. They're in position. They're in a really good spot to get something to really make them better. I think Miami could be a dark horse there too.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see what they want to do. Braden, you want to jump in on 49ers Packers, or can we talk Rams Buccaneers now?
Yeah, let's talk Rams Buccaneers.
So here's my thing with the Rams, and I just for a moment, I think it, I'll take my lap. I was the only one who was willing to risk the other in the Buccaneers matchup, because last weekend when we recorded on Sunday night, we didn't know yet if it was going to be the Rams or the Cardinals. I said very declaratively, if it's the Rams are beating the Buccaneers, and I believed that, and I stand by it. I mean, it was obviously a close game. It's Tom Brady. It's going to be a close game, but the Rams look. I mean, I think these Rams are completely capable of hosting the second Super Bowl at home in a row, because the Buccaneers hosted last year and it's the first time in NFL history, and they could be doing the same thing at their brand new stadium in Inglewood. They are really good, and on their best day, I think that they're better than the teams that are still in this, honestly. Maybe not, we'll see who they meet in the Super Bowl. If it's the Chiefs, that's probably the most difficult opponent. But honestly, Matt Stafford has waited a very, very long time to have this kind of team in front of him. He is statistically a Hall of Fame quarterback who had never won a playoff game before this season, because he'd been on, the only team that it's been more painful to be a supporter of than the Bills. Or the Bengals in the Lions. But Cooper Kupp came up big, made huge plays. Odell Beckham Jr. didn't have the same kind of game he did in the first round, but he was there for them. Their defense is terrifying. Their defense is really good and made it hard on Tom Brady. And sure, he put 27 points up on the board, but not without challenge and struggle. And again, these Rams, man, the only moment where the Rams defense failed them was Jalen Ramsey getting confused there on the very last Buccaneers touchdown. And for a split second, it looked like that was going to be the mistake. And whoa, would that have been such a storyline if the Buccaneers had held on to win it. But that final drive for the Rams too, talk about like under the gun and under pressure. I mean, you've just witnessed Tom Brady do what Tom Brady has done to so many teams, including the Rams in his first Super Bowl. He's marched down the field with less than a minute left on the clock. He's put the ball in the end zone. He's taken the lead and he said, all right, come get it. And Matt Stafford did exactly what he had to. His receivers did exactly what they had to. Did you see how excited Matt Stafford was after spiking that football? He knew what they had achieved just in that moment. Sure, they still had to make the field goal, but it wasn't a 60-yard attempt at that point. It's a chip shot in good weather. We're not playing at Lambeau.
Yeah.
And the Rams get to host the conference championship game now. So they have a potential of now being the home team in the championship round and in the Super Bowl if they can pull this out. I'm telling you, man, don't sleep on those Rams.
I think the Rams are a great story this year, and they certainly have the easier path to get to the Super Bowl in that they play San Francisco next week. So I think your points are well made around, I think they're very likely to host the Super Bowl game and be in it, to be completely honest with you. I was a little concerned with their second half. And the collapse. I mean, they give up 24 points in the second half of the game and really only scored. Well, they scored 10, but like they're.
But how much of that is Tom Brady?
Only
how much?
But Tom Brady's not playing defense, right? There was the Bucks did figure them out in the second half a little bit. Sure. So, but I think for your money's on them to make the Super Bowl, absolutely. Yeah. But are they better than KC or whoever's coming out of that division? That's another question, right?
I don't think so. I liked that game. I think that, like, I'm with Elliott. They let 24 go by them in the second half, which is a bit of a collapse and maybe just frantic energy trying to get to the end of that game.
They also had 4 turnovers too. Like that's concerning too.
Just the turnovers in the last 5 minutes for both teams was crazy. Right? Wasn't there not a fumble each way? And then just unbelievable how quickly that game was turning. You could just, you honestly, you don't know which way it's going until the final bells rung. But yeah, let's jump ahead. We're running a little late on this topic. So let's jump ahead to our conference championship matchups. Elliott, get your pen ready. We're going to make some more predictions here. This will be a little bit easier to track. We've got the Bengals Chiefs. Braden, I'm assuming that you're going to stay with your boy Joe Burrow against Patrick Mahomes. No, I don't know who you're picking. Who you got, Braden? Bengals, Chiefs.
I think Burrows and Jamar Chase are going to have a really great game, but I just don't know how. I don't know how Pat Mahomes can't continue the spark that he had in this game and the whole season. The last how many years he's been playing, this is his game. This is his game to lose, and I think he's not going to do that. I think I've got the Chiefs.
All right, Elliott.
Yeah, it's hard. It's so hard to bet against the Chiefs. I think I got to take the Chiefs in this one. For similar reasons. Like, I just think they're the best team left, and so it's really hard not to pick them.
Yeah, well, just to be the opportunist, I'll jump on the other one just for fun. I did pretty well this week with underdogs. I don't think the Bengals have a shot in this game, but I'll pick them anyway because that's who I'll root for, just because I love an underdog. And like Joe Burrow, it's a good story. Look, he had a tough freshman year when he's knocked out with an injury, and he came in with all this promise of rejuvenating the Bengals, and the fact that he's gotten them to a conference championship in his sophomore season is, I don't think it's unprecedented. I'm sure there's some other quarterbacks who've done the same thing, but it's probably beyond the expectations even Bengals fans could have had. It's fantastic, and now that Josh Allen's gone, he is the fresh face, new guy in the crop of the 3 other quarterbacks that are in these 2 championship rounds. He's the youngest guy. He's got the most to prove, and I think he's got a great opportunity here to really, put a solid foothold on the beginning of a career that could be really, really special. If he can do this with the Bengals, take them to the Super Bowl. God,
the Bengals their time is coming.
All right, so there you go, 2 Chief picks and 1 Bengal. Let's jump to the other side. We've got the 49ers Rams. I'm going to take the Rams. I'll just jump out. I said I think the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. Frankly, I think the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to go that far yet because we don't know if they're there. We were not making our Super Bowl picks, but I'd be willing to put money on it today. I really do believe they will host the Super Bowl at home, and I think that they'll have a little extra, zip at home than they did even on the road here against the Buccaneers. That could be part of that second half, a struggle there too. You were playing against a very noisy crowd, a very hostile environment. Now you get your fans at your back, and these are not the Chargers. They have fans in LA. The Rams fans are loud, they're passionate, they're excited, and now they've got something even bigger to cheer for. So I'll take the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going the Rams too, and it's mainly because the guy that nobody here's mentioned, and that's Aaron Donald. I think that he's a superstar, and he you saw how devastated he was losing last year in the playoffs. I think he's got a lot to prove this year, and it's gonna take it. The Rams.
I'm gonna go with the upset. I'll say San Francisco. What the hell? There's a world in which San Francisco goes in there and surprises them because they're such an underdog. So I'll and I also think San Fran's better than people expect. They've been really hurt by injuries the last 2 years, particularly last year. Garoppolo is going to have an amazing day. That's going to be part of it. But that's not necessarily out of the question. And so I'm going to take the 49ers, but that's a loose pick.
Well, to pump your tires a little bit, I mean, the 49ers beat the Rams in the regular season. It was an overtime game, so it was a tight game. So we should be, I mean, if everything holds true, we can expect another tight one, hopefully, or at least another exciting one. But yeah, they won 27-24. I guess that was in week 16. They play 18 weeks this year. 17. Okay, so week 15 then, the third to final game. So they've seen each other recently. They know each other pretty well. But Jimmy G is a good quarterback, and this team looks healthy. You're right. It could be something. We'll see. Maybe the pressure gets to the Rams at home, trying to get to that Super Bowl at home. All right. Those are our picks. They're locked in, and I guess next week we'll see how we do. That was topic one. Hey, if you're a fan of Hat-Trick Sports, then I promise you're going to love the Backyard Basketball Podcast. Hat-Trick's very own Braden Dowler Coltman sits down every Wednesday with his best bud, Christian Steck. And together, they break down all the news, rumors, transactions from around the basketball world. Whether it's the NBA or college hoops, these two guys love talking basketball, and you are going to love listening every Wednesday on the Backyard Basketball Podcast. All right, topic two. It's kind of Oilers related. It is Oilers related, but it isn't. We're not going to talk about the fact that they won and beat Calgary, which I'm sure everyone took a deep sigh of relief, and especially Dave Tippett, who I think was very much head in guillotine had that game been lost, just because they would have been forced to do something. The pressure was very high. But talking about pressure, that's what I wanted to dig into here. Just this can be a brief topic, but it's interesting. We got into it a little bit last week about what was wrong with the Oilers and what needed to fix. And I brought up one thing that I think bore out a little bit this week, which is the fact that I do believe that during this struggle, the Oilers have shown some weakness and some fragility as an organization and as a group of players. This is really getting to them. Now, obviously, COVID is a huge part of this. They played 2 games in like 14 days before they got to play Calgary on Saturday night. This is a hard thing for a group of players who are used to playing every other night, and they're going to start playing every other night. In fact, I think they have 3 back-to-backs in the next like month and a half because of the rescheduling. But there was a heated exchange at a press conference earlier this week between Leon Draisaitl and beat reporter for the Edmonton Journal Post Media, Jim Matheson, who is a Hall of Fame writer. He's been around for a very long time in Edmonton. He covered the Oilers in the 80s. Definitely a decorated writer, a veteran of Edmonton's media scene. But he's an older gentleman, and Draisaitl and him got into a bit of an argument. He asked Draisaitl what he felt was wrong with the team. Draisaitl responded everything. Jim Matheson asked a follow-up saying, well, can you be more specific? And Leon said no. There was a brief moment, and then Matheson came back and asked him, why are you so pissy? Draisaitl asked him to repeat himself, basically said, excuse me, pardon me. And he repeated it saying, why are you so pissy? No, why are you so pissy, Leon? And Leon obviously said, I'm not pissy. Nobody likes losing it. But it definitely was a moment that kind of caught a lot of people off guard. And then, Matheson followed up with a follow-up question about, you showed some emotion on the ice the other night, some anger and some frustration. Is that a good thing to show the opponent? Which Leon just laughed at and said, no, obviously not.
A great thing.
Yeah, that's
in sarcasm.
Yeah, so obviously a heated exchange that got a lot of attention. Immediately, you had all of the fellow writers and a lot of different journalists from across the country jumping into Matheson's defense as if he'd been slapped in the face by the athlete, as opposed to have just been pushed back against. A lot of people also on Twitter defending Leon, saying, what kind of question was that? How do you ask a player, why are you so pissy? Clearly, these two gentlemen, both feeling the pressure of the current situation for the Oilers. But what I guess I wanted to dig into here is, it's like, I mean, who's in the wrong here, or is anyone in the wrong? Is this just a consequence of the sort of the current culture or toxicity that's going on around the losing streak, or is there more to this? I'll just caveat it by saying it was very interesting to see Leon's press conference prior to the game against Calgary, because he was in a much more forthcoming mood. He did have a very positive comment about explaining he knew that the team really wanted to win this one against Calgary for the city of Edmonton and for the fans in Edmonton, because he knew that they were struggling and frustrated with how the team had been playing, and that the Oilers are, proud to play for these fans. So it was definitely, it felt a little bit like he was making a bit of a, not a concession, but a bit more of a statement saying, this isn't about, us and versus anybody else. But then he also went out there and proved it on the ice. He scored 2 goals in the win against Calgary. So, Leon kind of gets the last laugh. Braden, I'll go to you first. How did you take this whole exchange?
It was incredibly rude and uncalled for. Like, I don't understand how anybody would respond in another way that he did. The fact that he's asking, why are you, it's just like, it's rude, man. And start asking better questions. His first question was, what's the one thing that's wrong with the team right now? Like, what kind of a question is that? They've been losing they lost 14 games in a row, and every single night in and night out, they're asking the same damn question, which the Oilers are answering every single day in different kinds of ways. And it's like they're running out of things to say, which is another thing Jim Matheson ended up saying was, we don't know what to ask anymore. It's like, well, are you a Hall of Fame writer or not? That part really frustrated me. And as a fan, it's frustrating because you're seeing them, so much pressure in the city, so much pressure for them to win, like it doesn't help. It doesn't help anything. I don't understand how, like, when I heard it, it was like, take that guy's credentials away.
Yeah, I don't think you're taking away the credentials of Hall of Fame sports writer Jim Matheson, because you didn't.
But that kind of disrespect, where's the reprimand for that?
I don't think that he needs one, deserves one. He's the media. He can ask what he wants. That's sort of the deal. And like, whether we like like, what I don't like is the conflict between the media and the players, but the media that's their job to ask uncomfortable questions and to put people in uncomfortable situations. Well, I think the second part of it was this is not because of the response to one question. I mean, it's been made out to be like, there's been an ongoing sort of back and forth between Matheson and Draisaitl for a while. Sure. And I think that what unfortunately happens with Leon Draisaitl, because of the way that he plays and his demeanor in general, when he is flip because he's angry and frustrated, it comes across as not caring. And that, I think, was Matheson's response, was like, what, do you just not care? Like, you don't care about this? You don't care enough to answer my questions. Well, what's the expectation around you, like, doing that? I think this is the culmination of just the shitty situation that the media are in covering the team because of COVID. You used to be able to have private one-on-one conversations, and someone like Matheson, who's not a TV guy, but a print guy, where you can get in and get to know people's family and talk about their lives and have much more intimate and better conversations. And how Jim Matheson has gotten to the stature that he has is because he's been really good at getting to know players and getting information and getting great stories from players. And for the last 2 years, he's been severely handicapped in the way he can do his job, because all he can do is go on Zoom or go to the press conference and ask 2 questions. They can't be in the locker room. They can't. And you're starting to see this. You're seeing that impact with certainly older members of the media, but particularly the print guys who that sort of relationship is sent due to the fact that they're able to get into dressing rooms is central in what they can do for their work. When you're asking the question publicly in front of everyone, everyone's getting it. You're not getting any exclusive. You're not getting anything unique or different. You can only look at stats and find so many unique different stats or weird things to write about. They're missing that human side. And I think there's a lot of frustration with the Edmonton Oilers and surrounding the Edmonton Oilers. But I also think there's immense frustration from the media because of the lack of access to players. And this is an example of the culmination of it. Is there someone right or wrong in this? No. Do I think, am I gonna stand here and do the Matheson defense that every other member of the media gave to him? No, because I'm not in a position to do that. I don't get that. But that's a whole other thing. There's a code, there's a code in hockey. There's a code in media too. But
exactly. There should be a code and somebody should be stepping in saying this is unacceptable. You can't be saying this kind of shit.
No, but he was frustrated. I mean, he can ask the question. These players receive enough media training to be able to dodge that question if he got it. I don't think Leon's response to it was all that great. He could have shut it down right there and made himself look a lot better in the situation. But he's pissed off. Like, everything about the situation is shitty. But there's immense.
Why ask him that?
There's immense frustration in
I think it's interesting because I think I'll give some credit to your idea, Elliott, that there's definitely like a strange dichotomy, especially for these old guys, these guys who had like Matheson and Terry Jones. I mean, there's two conversations after. Let's just quickly point. I'll do the first thing, and then I'll take my stab at the Edmonton Oilers beat reporters, because I'd love to do that. But let's go with this first. This exchange, the journalist shouldn't become the story, is the challenge here, right?
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening, right? Because both people, let their frustrations, I think, dictate their actions in this situation. It was an inappropriate thing to ask the way he asked it. I think he shouldn't have allowed his own personal emotions to come into it. He was upset because, look, he was looking for, let's be honest, all these guys are looking for are 2 or 3 sound bites to plug into a story they've already written. That's what print media is these days, right? Jim Matheson's already written the article with the perspective he's going to put on what's wrong with this team. They get usually two players who come out to the podium. It's not like they're going to get huge amounts of, detail oriented gold here. What did he expect Leon Draisaitl to say to a question, what's wrong with the team? Leon's not going to say, well, actually, we've noticed that, when 3 of our players aren't playing more than 22 minutes a game, we struggle, and when the power play doesn't get 14, like, what the fuck is he expecting in that question? It's such a loaded question to begin with. What's the one thing? Get out, like, come on. But you're right, I think there's a history there's some struggle there. Here's the thing I have with the current crop of Edmonton journalists who are given the opportunity to have conversations with these players. And I think I went off a little bit on these guys last time we had a conversation about the Oilers, especially about the whole Holland press conference and all of that state of the union for the team. Some of these guys need to retire and give up their credentials to some younger and fresher perspectives, some new people with some new voices, maybe a few more women, maybe a few more people with some diversity and some diverse ideas. Look, every single story about Jim Matheson led with he's a Hall of Fame journalist. I don't give a shit if he's a Hall of Fame journalist or if it's his very first day on the job. Kind of let's talk about the specifics of the moment. Terry Jones, Jim Matheson, Mark Spector, even they're like reporters for Sportsnet and Rogers. Who's it? Like Ryan Rashog. Okay, maybe you give him. He just breaks news. He does nothing. There's no other opinion there. But Gene Principe, like, how are any of these guys employed? There's got to be better people who could be doing these jobs. Even the color guy. What's his name? The bloody Bob Stauffer. Talk about Bob like Stuffy. Oh my God, can we get some fresh people in there? What a breath of fresh air. Like Jack Michaels has been on the television broadcast because he's new and different and does it a little differently. And isn't that great?
He's not that new.
He's not new, but the way he does play-by-play is different than the old crop. He's not Jim Houston. He's not Bob Cole.
No, of course. I don't think you're wrong.
I'm ready for something new. Jason Greger is the only guy who I even have time to listen to because at least he has real conversations about this stuff. But most of these guys are just regurgitating the same shit over and over.
I think in some places you're right, in some places you're wrong. I would disagree with Rashog. I think the TSN guys, so that would be Greger and Rashog, are actually really good. Rashog does so much.
Rashog can have a pass. That's fine.
I think, Bruce and Mark Spector have been problems. I actually don't mind Jim Matheson most days. Like I said, again, and I disagree with your point. It's like, well, he's already written the story. Well, that's how he's doing it now. But that's not what gets you to the level of stature that Jim Matheson's gotten to.
That's like my point. He's doing that now. That means it's probably time to call it a day.
But that's a product of COVID and the impact on the media. That's not Jim Matheson's lazy or given up. I think there are folks like that, and we've all got strong feelings about Bruce and Mark Spector, but that's fair. And to your point around diversity and just in all senses of the word, completely with you on Bob Stauffer. It's difficult. The other thing I would say, just going back to like the relationship right now that's accentuated by COVID, is you need access, right? And so you have this difficult balance between finding interesting stories and being critical of the team and asking tough questions, but also maintaining your credentials and maintaining your access to the team. And in this press conference world that they live in, you don't have the opportunities for those feel-good stories that kind of maintain your credentials. So it's very complicated. Like the media relationship with the team, it's incredibly problematic. The fact that the team owns 630 Ched and essentially can just use it as a propaganda arm for the organization is, for me, a problem. But this is more complex than like, these guys are fossils and we need to get them out of here. And unfortunately, that's where this conversation oftentimes ends up.
Well, here's the thing with it. This is okay. So I'll push back on that one more time, because I do believe this. Like, we've had conversations about Major League Baseball losing its audience because it isn't adapting. And here's the thing. I think that the NHL or these specific organizations have to be very careful of moving forward. Your audience is going different places to get its news and get its media fix on these teams. Younger people are not reading the Edmonton Journal. They are not digging into, Jim Matheson's journal article every day. That's just not true. They're going to Oilers Nation, or they're going to blogs, and they're going to social media.
The Athletic.
And the Athletic. They're going to other places where they can get that on their phone, and they can get it tap right into the other channels that they're already connected to. And none of those organizations, the Athletic does, but you're not getting those bloggers with access. There should be there should be way more opportunities for those less credentialed people to have access to these players, to this organization, whether it's a rotation of who gets in and out of these press conferences, but there are really quality writers and guys who are writing articles for Oilers Nation, even. I'm just giving them free publicity. But the truth is, there are guys who are writing for those kind of blogs or fan sites and stuff that frankly are writing more in-depth analysis of what is going on with this organization than I think a lot of the hardcore quote unquote mainstream journalists are doing. And the truth is, that's where the fans are going to get that information. And if you're the Oilers organization, or you're any organization, Vancouver, it doesn't matter, anywhere in Canada where hockey matters, you gotta start thinking about, how do we get our message onto those platforms? How do we get our players voices onto those platforms? How do we make sure that the people who are writing the stories about our team are getting to ask the questions to make sure that they're legitimized, because that's where the fans are going, And I think that there's a missing opportunity there that isn't about pushing out the old guard, but let's be honest, every one of those press conferences has the same 4 or 5 people asking questions. And I think that there could be a bit more open and I think it would be refreshing for the players. They don't have to listen to Jim Matheson ask him the same question every time. Maybe he just doesn't like Jim Matheson's voice. I don't know. Maybe that's what makes him pissy.
It doesn't matter though to me. Going back to that comment, it's so disrespectful. I think to anybody, to any league. I get their media; they can ask whatever they want, but that kind of thing, just it's rude. And I don't feel like that's a necessary thing to do. That's really frustrating. On one end, I'm really happy that Leon did handle it the way he did, which was just, this is ridiculous. I'm just gonna. What do you ask? I'm giving you questions. Matheson said, well, not very good ones. And then to see Leon put up 4 points the next night, that's good. That's what you want. And that's where you want that answer to come.
Maybe we need Leon. Maybe we need Leon Draisaitl pissed off more often.
Well, didn't they lose 6-0 first, and then they won on Saturday?
I think the press conference was after the game. Was it before Florida?
It was before.
I think it might have been before Florida. One last thing on the media thing. One really nice kind of story that came out of that was, I don't know if either of you heard Brendan Perlini's comments in the media. Great. It's just it's so refreshing to hear somebody so eloquently talk about positivity and let's there is a way out of this. Let's not just talk about the X's and O's of our game.
I want more Brandon Perlini. I want more Brandon Perlini on the ice. I want more Brandon Perlini in front of the mic. I don't know if you guys saw him on After Hours. He was great. They made a joke about, are you still busy? But Brandon Perlini, hey, you want to keep your job, Dave Tippett? Let's see more Brandon Perlini, because he is exactly what this team needs right now. He's just that positivity, energy wise, and look, he's producing on the ice. Where the hell has he been all year? Let's go.
And NHL, Edmonton Oilers, you can credential Hat Trick Sports, and we'll be there asking the hard-hitting questions in a very respectful manner.
Thank you.
I wasn't bringing that up because I was trying to be self-serving, but honestly, I think that there's space for some new voices. Anyway, that's enough of that for now. Let's leave it there.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network is excited to announce that we have launched a merch store on our website.
The store is full of ordinary swag, including t-shirts, hoodies, and hats. You can pick out something awesome and support your favorite podcast today by heading over to ordinarypodcasts.com.
We're going to do hats off. Anybody want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first because I don't think Braden has his yet. I am going to tip my hat to one Naomi Osaka, who was ousted from the Australian Open this week in the third round, but in the aftermath of that, had a very good press conference where she spoke, one, about her mental health challenges and the challenges that tennis have given to her. Of course, we all know, and we covered this on the show, there was a great backlash when she removed herself from a major open last year, citing mental health concerns. And we talked that through back then and had a great conversation. She's back now. She's playing. Not the result that she wanted, but really spoke favorably about how she's been working on this, and this is something that she knows that she has to work towards, and that while she was disappointed in her loss, it was not the end of the world, and it wasn't as damaging or as difficult as it had been in the past. Which, to speak openly about your mental health in any scenario is very brave, but that she continues to do it, and also is talking about working on it and how it's an important piece of her work. So moving forward, and I just want to tip my hat to her for being open and honest and coming back, and always will cheer for her. Disappointed that she lost, but as she said, it's not the end of the world. She mentioned that she'll be taking the schedule in stride and be doing things when they feel tournaments when they feel appropriate. And hey, you know what? That's maturity and putting yourself first. And so tipping my hat to Osaka this week.
It's a great one. Okay, I'll go next. Mine's from the hard court, but not from the NBA. Mine is actually from women's basketball and the NCAA. My hat goes off this week to Aoka Lee, who poured 61 points in to set an NCAA women's record. Single game scoring record for Division I. Scored 61 points, not a single one of them from beyond the arc. Those were all 2-pointers. She led her team, the Kansas State team, unranked, to a huge win, 93-65 over number 4 Oklahoma. So a big upset and an unbelievable night for Lee. Like I said, 23 of 30 shooting from the floor, all of them 2-pointers for the Wildcats. Just fantastic. Really, I mean, it's just very, very impressive. And I take my hat off to an up and coming superstar, probably a future WNBA player, Aoka Lee. Braden, round us out.
Nice. I'm tipping my hat off to the greatest shooter of all time, Stephen Curry, who he made his first ever winning buzzer beater of his whole career 2 nights ago against the Rockets. They're having a really great season, the Golden State Warriors. But yeah, surprisingly enough, he's never won a game with a buzzer beater, and this was his first. So hats off, Steph Curry, greatest shooter of all time.
You gonna talk about that on the show this week? You got a show this week?
We do, yeah. Check it out.
We missed you last week, but we got you this week. So we'll have that up there. That's the Backyard Basketball Podcast. All right, boys. Great week. Good discussion. Lots of football talk, lots of media talk, and we'll be back next week with we'll see how Tanty polling does with. You only got 2 games now, Elliott. It's much easier than 4. Obviously you struggled with 4, so we'll see.
No, you want more options, because then that improves your percentage, because you have more chances to be right. This is when it starts to get stressful.
Did not help you.
Go 49ers.
All right. That is our show for this week. We'll leave it there. Thanks, guys. Thank you all for listening, and thanks, guys. All right, that's Hat Trick.
Hat Trick is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. It's produced every week by Jordan Dowler-Coltman and Braden Dowler-Coltman. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network wishes to acknowledge that the lands on which our conversations take place include Treaty 6 territory, the traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and the Nakota Sioux peoples, as well as the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. And we extend our appreciation for the opportunity to live, create, and share stories on these territories.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network intends to engage in conversations and dialogue which acknowledge that reconciliation is not a destination, but a journey, and that we remain committed to practicing our craft in a decolonized space.